Hello.
Hi,
Welcome to another episode of Our Years. I'm Rima.
this is Barry.
The other day, me and Barry were talking about sort of where we are in this phase of our life, whether it's our dating life, our professional life, and just invariably comparing ourselves, at least I comparing myself to other people my age group and sort of evaluating
it's hard
where
not
I am.
to.
Yeah. And so then we started talking about whether we felt left behind in certain aspects of our, like I said, career, personal life. And we thought it would be a good thing to chat about because I feel like a lot of people are feeling that right now.
Yeah.
When I talk to my other girlfriends or even my other friends in my age group, everyone's feeling it in different aspects. And I think what's interesting is how everyone's framing it or reframing it and their approach to it. So we thought it would be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like one of the things we've talked about is like, why do we feel that way? Like, obviously, the reason we feel, that we're like left behind is because of comparison. But also, I think comparison to what we thought that we would be when we were younger.
Right.
The expectations that we had for ourselves.
Yeah. Did you have a vision of what you would be when you were in your 30s? And
Yeah,
is that what
I
you're doing?
think we talked about this before, but like I think when you are younger, you have this idea of like, okay, I want to be married or I want to be in a relationship by 25, be in a relationship for like 3-4 years, get married by like 28, then be in a single married life without kids for like a couple of years. And then by 30, have your first kid.
Yeah.
And then 32, your last kid. And now that I just turned 31, it's just like, you think about, oh, wow, am I behind because you had all these expectations for yourself?
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
So the feeling behind is almost the behind of what you thought your life was going to be.
Right.
And I think the standard for what you mentioned was a lot of people have that standard. And I think it's because that standard was set like in our parents' generation and it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
But the world that they became adults in is so different from the world that we became adults in.
Right. I think like I thought back on why back in the day in our parents' generation, like there was this like timeline. I think because life expectancy was a lot shorter.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, it was like financial stability. Like you kind of need to partner up with someone, to like buy a house yourself, or buy a house with someone, because I mean, in today's day, especially in Silicon Valley, you probably need to do that too.
Yeah.
But, given other places, there is the reality where you are able to afford a house yourself. You don't really need to partner up to do so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's just times have changed.
Yeah. And I think also like women didn't have the choices that we do now to like freeze eggs, IVF.
True,
and
true.
so I think a lot more women are able to have mental peace of mind because they're able to do these things and have kids later on in life. But our parents or our mothers didn't have that choice, right?
That's
of that
true.
generation.
That's true. And it's kind of just like because they didn't have so much going on for them, they kind of
Life was simpler.
Exactly. Life was simpler. I think what they had access to was a lot less than what we have access to.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of like the different stages of life that you go through, and it just kind of rolled into one from one to the next.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think in the area I feel left behind or like I feel like I should be further ahead is when I compare myself to my friends or other people who moved to America sooner. Like I moved to America for my master's and then started working post that.
And then you worked before your master's.
Yeah. In a different country. I worked in India.
Right.
And so I compare myself a lot to like the people of my age group who are right now, or I compare myself to people in my age group right now in America. And a lot of these folks came here for undergrad. And so their career trajectory or even what their like comp is so much different from what mine is. And I know that in theory, I know that I understand why that's the case. But I compare myself to other 30-year-olds and I'm like, oh, I need to be at this position and I need to be making this much. And that's what I feel behind on. Like, I feel like I had to reset when I moved, like grow a network, start a career it's not transferable, right? Like you think you have all this experience in another country and you'll get the same kind of job here, but that wasn't the case. And so I feel like in those aspects I feel like I'm behind, but I get the theory behind it.
Yeah.
But it's a feeling like there's just like the noise that I need to filter through, and I do have to manage through that.
Yeah. And I was telling you this just before we started recording, is like comparison is a thief of joy. And I think it's so true, right? Like it's so hard not to compare, but then when you do compare, like it's real. Like you just feel like you're left behind. You feel sad about it. You feel like not necessarily a failure, but you just feel like you're not doing as well as other people are. And I think that kind of stunts your progress, you know.
And it takes away from your like joy of your own life.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So like you know, it's just all in all, it's just not a good thing for you to do. And so I think what we wanted to do in this podcast is, you know, kind of remind ourselves and be kind to ourselves that, you know, everybody has a different path. Once you hit your 30s, everybody diverges on a different path. What it might look like for others and what success might look for others might look different for you.
Yeah, that's so true. Because I feel like most people in their 20s, their lives are more or less similar because most people are in school for a very long time. And so you're sort of in a bubble and most people are going through the same journey. Like even if you start a career, say in like banking or consulting or like even in engineering, you're similar to a lot of other people in your field who are starting off. But I feel like 30s is when you really diverge.
Exactly.
Like in your career, like do you want to be an individual contributor? Do you want to be a people manager?
Right.
Personally, like do you want to have kids? Not. Do you want to stay partnered up? Not. It's like I think you're right. The 30s is when you really feel the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think because it's like you're so used to in your 20s being on the same path as everybody else, and then suddenly like it's not, and then you just feel like, oh, whoa, like why is like this person doing this? Should I be doing this? And then you start to question yourself. Right?
Yeah. And it feels like all the decisions are important.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, the foundation of your career, or like a stability in your career, stability in your personal life, stability in your friendships. It's like everything is important, or even, and we're also at a point where we both have family back home. And so then it's like, oh, are we making the right choices?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah. So I also compare myself to a lot of my friends who didn't end up leaving India, and then their relationship with their parents as opposed to my relationship with my parents. And I feel like guilt about like leaving.
Yeah.
And so
for sure.
there's that comparison, or yeah.
But then you think about the times if like you did stay, like how might your life look compared to here.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just give and take.
Yeah. I don't regret the move. I'm
Yeah.
glad I did it. But then I also feel behind.
Yeah.
But then I think that's going to be a constant. I think if we don't do anything about it, it's going to overcome all the joy, overtake all the joy that we feel. Because I feel like the goalposts for success keep changing.
Right.
And it's a lot of big comparison. So I feel like any position you are in your career, you'll always be like, oh no, I should have been doing in this position.
Right. I think like there are 3 areas I think that we spoke about that are kind of what we feel left behind, or people in their 30s start to feel like they're left behind. And I think it's financial stability, relationships, and then or like starting a family, etc., and then career, right? Yeah. Do you feel like strongly about any of the 3 in which, you know, you feel a little left behind?
I think it's maybe financial stability, because I feel like at least for me, things are so up in the air about like work visas or like immigration.
Right.
So I feel like the thought of like maybe I have to reset again, and I feel like that is
think about that.
Yeah, I think about that a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't necessarily have to reset, like, and I don't know if this is true for India, right? But I don't necessarily feel that, because I feel that America is almost like the peak. So it's like if I do end up having to move back to Asia because of visa reasons, I feel like I'm at an advantage. I don't feel like I would need to start over. In fact, I feel like I will do a lot better in Asia,
because you already have a leg up from here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think when I say think of reset, I think of like, doing like setting up the community again, or like setting up a life again, because I would not go back to a life that I had previously. Right. It's not like the clock reset. It would be a completely new reset.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I think about.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But then if you go back to Asia, I guess you would still have your like support group there, right? Or do you
know the thing that we said about how when you turn 30, everybody's like path suddenly diverge. So I feel like every year almost everyone's path looks so different.
That's true.
That I wouldn't have that way if I go back, or it would look very different.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, on like the financial stability left behind concepts, right? Don't you think it's like very much in relation to where you are, the field you're in?
100%.
Yeah, like I feel like in the Bay especially, right? People talk about TC. It's not like we are earning a bad TC. Like, I think we're doing pretty decently to live the life that we are living.
Yeah.
It's just that because everybody here is trying to one up each other, or everybody's trying to grow in their TC.
Yeah.
I think I would say it's almost a bar that people use to compare if their life is good or not, in the Bay especially.
Yeah. You're right. I think it's very much a symptom of where we live.
Right.
Because I saw this post on LinkedIn of all the places.
Of course. Because that's the only social media you have.
Correct. I've been lurking on Reddit. But like basically this person was like, the money here is almost, it's like we can't like the numbers don't make any sense, because he sees startups raising like 4 million at a 40 million evaluation, and it's like wild and he was comparing when Airbnb raised, they're like, I think
wasn't like something billions.
But that's what they're saying, that they're eventually their exit, like they made billions.
Okay.
But this guy was saying, so the Airbnb founder commented on this comment, and he was like, when Airbnb was raising money after YC, they were at a 3 million valuation total, and that they were the highest in their class.
Whoa.
And cut to now where we're talking about like Anthropic
X being like trillion when it's gonna go at IPO, right? Like it's
numbers
crazy.
are insane.
Like it's so unfathomable. That's like, and I guess that to your point, that's probably why we feel the need to like up our TC, because like it's so little compared to like
to
what these companies are earning.
I think it's that. I think it's very much of where we are.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think it's also one of those things where, because the Bay is so like competitive in terms of like the jobs you have, and everybody here is so intelligent and smart, I think the comparison point, and I think it's human nature to compare, not that it's a good thing, but I think that is just naturally what people do, because TC is just kind of like what varies from company to company, and everybody's trying to get this talent.
And I feel like everyone is really online right now. Every subsequent year, everyone is more online than we've ever been.
That's true.
So everyone's constantly posting about their life. So you're constantly seeing, like on Team Blind, like you're constantly seeing what people are making, or with social media where people are like, even on like holidays, or like where they are in their relationships. And so it's so much more visibility into other people's lives than you've ever had.
For sure.
So that also adds to the noise.
Yeah, that's true. And then going back to your point earlier, that you said offline, is that because we're so online, that's why we are able to see what other people in their 30s are doing. Like, think back to our parents' days.
Yeah, they didn't have LinkedIn.
It was so like
simple.
I was gonna say easy, but simple is a better word. But yeah, like they didn't think to compare, because I guess they didn't have exposure to what other people were doing. But because we're constantly seeing that online, like next thing you know, someone's posting their baby pictures, someone's posting a promotion on LinkedIn, and then you kind of start to feel, conscious about yourself.
Yeah, I think it's that. And I think in our parents' generation, people want to do well for themselves. And I'm sure, like, human nature, like, I'm sure I would be wrong to say nobody was comparing themselves. But I feel like everybody was not as in each other's business as much as it is now.
That's true. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
What areas do you feel behind on?
I don't think I necessarily feel behind. I think I sometimes think about, what my life currently is compared to what I hoped for myself, going back to what expectations my younger self had for me in my 30s. When I think back on that, I'm just like, oh, okay, it's so interesting, because back then I was like, okay, by 30, I should be a senior manager or like a director at a big company, or if anything, I would start my own company. And now that I'm not that, it's just like, I kind of just have to remind myself, that this is reality. It's the innocent, naive self that had these dreams and expectations of what my 30s would look like.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the real world was like.
That's a good point.
You know?
A child doesn't know what
exactly. So why am I being so hard on myself
for maintaining that standard.
Exactly. And I think I'm happy where I am. You know, I think I do well for myself. I don't feel necessarily like I'm behind because I know that I have 2 master's degrees, you know, and what am I supposed to just pull that out thin air, you know? It does take time. And I think I actually already had this kind of walk through this in my brain when I applied for my second master's. I kind of like had this discussion with my mom, and I was like, you know, if I go do the second master's, that would mean that, you know, I reset. And I would be behind everybody else by 2 to 3 years, given I worked a year after my first master's. And my mom was just like, yeah, but if that's what you want to do, just do it. You know, like, why care about what other people are doing? Because ultimately you're doing this for yourself. You're not doing it for other people. Yeah, and that's true. Like, comparing yourself to other people is doing it for other people and thinking that they care. But honestly, people don't care what you're doing.
I think people are so wrapped up in their own lives, right, and they really don't care what other people are doing.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's just reminding myself of that. I don't think I necessarily compare, and that's why I don't feel sad to be where I am. And I kind of just continue working towards kind of a better version of myself. That being said, though, debunking what I previously thought I would be, which is like a senior manager. I don't know if that's what I want anymore, you know. And again, going back to, that was the innocent, naive little girl that thought what success might look like, right? But success doesn't necessarily mean becoming a manager.
Yeah. And I think this is I can say for sure that this is like an Indian mentality, and I think maybe as I listen to you, it maybe seems like an Asian mentality,
right,
where a lot of people think being promoted automatically means being a manager of people.
Sure, yeah.
Like, you have people under you.
Right.
And like, I feel like an individual contributor manager is still a new concept.
Right.
Like, a friend of mine who's Indian she's a director, and she got promoted last year, and she's a product manager director, so she still has she's still an IC. Mm-hmm. But when she told her parents, they were like, oh, how many people do you have under you? And they didn't understand that is not a thing. Right. Like, you can be a manager, and the managing is for scope, not for people.
Right.
And I think there's that aspect of like growing up in Asia where, hey, you're in your 30s, you have to be managing people.
Right. It's so interesting because I think like their idea of getting promoted is becoming like a manager. Yeah. And I think because they think becoming a manager is earning more money.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily true.
I think ICU managers make way more. Yeah.
So I think like that's like debunking like a huge stereotype of what it means to be successful in Asia, especially. I think like I had in recent years had to kind of explain and clarify to my Asian family that, you know, managers don't necessarily earn more than these IC6s, IC7s, you know, in these big tech companies who could be earning more than $500,000 a year, right? And they're just like so shocked by it. But I think like it helps to clarify that with them, because especially I think in Taiwan, you know, it's such a homogenous community and country that a lot of the work is like manufacturing. It's like engineering for semiconductors, especially because everybody knows, you know, that's what Taiwan's known for.
Yeah.
And so I think because they don't have like PM roles typically, it's like a new concept to them. You're starting to see more roles like that. But before then, they kind of just like, okay, to climb up the ladder, you become managers, and that's how you get more money.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that has created this misconception of success and in terms of finances.
Yeah, I think in terms of corporate, very similar in India, that only if you were like a scientist in like a pure science field, like maybe defense or aerospace or something like that, only then would you be a scientist of individual contributor and you just like rise up the ladder. But even then you'd run your own lab.
Right.
But the whole thing of like being a technical manager, an individual contributor, that's still not a notion people are grokking.
Yeah. And logically, like, this is not realistically not enough positions for every single Asian parent's kids to be a manager. Like this is the expectation for every single every single
Asian
Asian
kid?
yeah,
Yeah.
Asian kid.
They all
Who's
have to
gonna do
be
the job?
who's gonna be the people who are being managed?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was like a huge part of me growing up and understanding, that, what I thought was success is not necessarily what the real success is.
Yeah.
And obviously success is different for each person.
Yeah. I think it's been a huge, like the last few years for me have been a huge process of discovery.
Yeah,
More-
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Of discovery of like what I actually want, where I want, like who I want to be, where I want to be, what I want to be doing with my life. A lot of it is like exploratory. And I think a lot of people think that these are answers you should have even before undergrad or before uni. And then when you go into uni, it like sort of shapes this.
Yeah.
But I feel like the world we're living in is so massively different from even like my sister who's like 5 years older than me. I think like when the early 30s are so different from what mine are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though we both immigrated in different circumstances.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Do you compare yourself to your parents because your parents also immigrated?
Sometimes I do. Like I talk to my parents, and when they were 30, they were married, and they started having kids by like 33, 34, and they were running businesses,
Right.
and it's funny because I'm just like, I'm 31, my sister's 32, Eric's 35. No, 33, 35. Right. And it's just like we're now at the age that our parents were at
When they had
they had us, and we're running the different companies that they were running. Right. And it's so interesting because then I like talk to my mom, because I feel like my mom to my mom and my dad, we're still their babies. Right. And I'm just like, just think about it. Like, you can't keep treating us like your babies, because when you were 32, 33, 34,
Yeah.
you were like independent in a different country, running a company or two and having kids, right? It's just so wildly different that in our generation, we're not everybody has the chance of like running their own company anymore. It's a lot more competitive. It's a lot harder to run your own company. And also just realistically, we aren't having kids because, we're now trying to strive for different things, I guess. Yeah. How about you?
I don't know. The kids thing is always for me has been a function of a potential like a relationship.
Partner. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like science has progressed so much that I don't feel that kind of pressure about kids.
Right.
That I feel like less. That's the least thing I feel pressure about.
Yeah. Yeah. How about like what your parents were doing, and then do you compare yourself to them?
I mean, both my parents worked. I think my mom was one of the few moms who worked in my school group, and so it's always been a thing that like a career is important.
Yeah.
But I life was simpler.
So much.
And I'm sure they felt all sorts of pressure
Sure.
when they were 30. I don't
Yeah.
want to like minimize what
No,
they were
for
going
sure.
through.
For sure.
But it like I feel like they still like their support system was still there. Like dealing with so much migration was not there.
Yeah.
And maybe that's unfair. Maybe they had other things to like to stress about.
I think for them, right, at least for my parents, I think what they stressed about is that they decided on the path to start a company. That was their only path. There was no going back. They had to make that the right decision, and they had to just run with it.
And that's a lot of stress.
Exactly. As opposed to us, if we feel like this is not something we want, we just pivot to something else, and it's relatively accessible and easy.
Yeah.
As opposed to their days where in that point in time, it would have been difficult to start all over.
What would have been an alternative? Say potentially a business in work, they could not work for someone else, or they would have to keep starting businesses until one of them eventually became
I think
successful?
so. Yeah, especially because like back then in South Africa, they didn't speak the language like super well. So it's not like they could work a corporate job like we do here.
What was the language? And it was like prevalent even in whatever corporate
English in South Africa, but
Oh,
like
okay.
their English is not good, right? It's like it's not fluent, so they could not have worked like a corporate job in South Africa. And then on top of it, it's like they just didn't have the education that we got as kids, where we have like master's degrees. Back in my parents' days, they only had like college degrees or like diplomas in a technical aspect, right? Like it's not, they didn't have the resources like we did, and so it wasn't so easy for them to just pivot if the company didn't work out. And my parents, and I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember the first company, but their first company actually failed. And I can just imagine how stressful it must have been, because they already had my brother. And then they had my sister and I. And then I remember when I was like 3 or 4, my dad used to just be so stressed every night. And I could feel it, because he would run through 2 bags of cigarettes a day, just because of how stressed he was, because the company he was running at that time wasn't doing so well. But obviously grateful that I am now. It like got better and we became like decent. But I can only imagine that they had no other path. And so he was like, I can only make it work. I can't keep burning money running all these new companies until it works, right?
Yeah.
So, especially because our family didn't come from money. Yeah, so I can only imagine the stress that they had was that, whereas the stress we have nowadays is like, finding a job that's better, a job that pays better, et cetera, et cetera. But I think for us, it's relatively easy just to pivot if we wanted to, especially because we have access to all these resources online.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think the thing to remember to what I said about this last few years have been a process of discovery, is that the goalposts are going to keep shifting for success. And I think it's how you reframe what success and failure is and have perspective.
Yep.
That's the only way we'll get by.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, be kind to yourself. Remind yourself that, everybody is living a different phase in life. At 30, everybody's going to diverge, know, and your success may not mean success for someone else and vice versa.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that we're all on some sort of spectrum, where in some aspects of your life, you're doing better than some people. And then in some aspects of life, you're doing maybe not so well.
Yeah.
But then it's always like ebb and flow. It's not a thing that's permanent.
True.
We were reading before we started this podcast. This episode, we were reading a post on LinkedIn about this person who feels really left behind because they're going through a divorce and they're working in banking, and they feel like everyone's younger than them and stuff. But when I was reading it, I was like, this person's going to be okay, because it's not permanent. They seem like they have a strong head on their shoulders and they're going to like figure it out.
Right.
I wish I could do that for myself.
That's the thing, right? I feel like objectively, when we see it, when we're not like in the situation, we're just like, in the grand scheme of things, you'll be fine. Okay.
Yeah. I think this person was saying that because they're in banking and everyone's younger, they feel like left behind. And what if their manager compares them to what their manager was at their position? And then I'm like, you'll be fine.
But that's
it's
the
a
thing,
process.
right? I feel like if we were in her shoes, if we were experiencing those things, I think we would be feeling the same emotions
100%.
because it's so hard to remove yourself.
Yeah, 100%. It's easy to tell other people to not do it. And that's the point I'm making. Like when I read stuff like that, I'm like, oh, this person.
Easy.
Yeah, they're just like in the moment, they're going through something, but they'll be okay because they seem smart and they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I find it hard to do that for myself.
As does everybody. But I think it's just, being kind to yourself and keep reminding yourself that, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal and you'll get by.
Yeah.
You'll always do.
Yeah. There's this philosophy, I forget, it's Latin. I think it's called memento mori, which basically means like, remember no matter what, you'll die.
What?
It's basically like at the end, everyone dies, so none of this
matters. What a way to live.
So it's called memento mori, and it's this like school of thought where it's
I will not be teaching that to my kids, because then my kids will be like, that I can do whatever. Why do I have to study? Everybody's gonna die.
I mean, and they're right.
Yeah, I mean, they're not wrong.
The other version of it is like, hey, because you're going to die, you have to make more of what your time is over here.
Right, but kids don't know any better. So
even I can see. I mean, I like the first train of thought sometimes.
You got to still make a living.
This is the reframing thing that we were talking about.
Exactly. Speaking of which, yeah, I think reframing is like a very big part of, in addition to, you know, reminding yourself, it's reframing the concept, I guess, of being left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think you can go about doing that for yourself?
I think it's a skill, honestly, that it's muscle you have to develop. I think it's like almost like being positive, which
You're
is
just
it
like
all,
disgusted.
it all comes back to this thing. I think reframing is about being positive.
It is, for sure.
And it's like you have to believe that things will get better.
For sure.
And you have to believe that you can do certain things, and you know, all you can do is keep moving and make choices based on what you know and keep moving.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll get it. And I think my issue is that I changed my idea of success very quickly. And so as soon as I get my previous idea, I immediately change it. So it feels I'm behind again. So that is a me problem. But I think the thing is, you have to believe that you're doing the right things, and like and it may not look like what you thought it would be on paper, but you're doing everything you can. That's all you can do.
Yeah. I watched this very powerful talk. It was this lady, how she was talking about like success just looks very different for everyone, right? So you see successful people in their 20s nowadays and you feel like you're left behind. But then you think about it, there are people in their 30s, 40s and 50s, heck, even 60s that have just made it, you know, and those people are still successful and they're like huge, and they, you know, were able to achieve what they wanted to achieve even at the age of 60, and that's because they didn't give up. And you just gotta keep the momentum, keep the fire, keep the passion, and not compare yourself to other people, because success happens at different times for each person.
And most people just post their like successes on the internet online.
True.
But like I feel like if more people posted how I feel like everybody I
Is
speak
going
to
through
has
something.
is yeah.
Right, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, you're totally right. I think like people are prone to like show the better side, the glamorous side, the good side online. And very seldom do people post the negative.
The failures.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So we're in a culture also of like a hustle culture where it's all
That's
about
true.
the wins.
That's true. So give yourself a pat on the back. You're doing well. You should be proud of yourself. You know, just keep moving. Keep working towards your goals.
Yeah, that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Just give up?
Some people might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
On some days even I want to
I was
give
just
up.
gonna say, on some days I just want to give up.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel like that some days, but just remember that, you know, at the end of the day, pick yourself back up and keep moving.
Yeah. What are some practical ways in which you cope when you find yourself in this sort of rut?
One of the things is, and I think the reason I'm not unhappy with where I am, even though it's not what I expected myself to be at when I was younger, is that I kind of just remind myself that others are on their own path, and I let them be on their own path, and I let myself be on my own path, you know, and focus strictly on myself and my progress. So I think a lot of the comparison that I do is against my old self and not with others. And I think that has always been a part of me since I was a kid, is like I don't ever compare myself to other people. I just compare myself against the older version and what I was yesterday, and what I want to be tomorrow. And I think like that has really helped me, you know, not spiral into a negative hole of feeling like I'm failing compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
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 How about you?
I think the one thing is when I get triggered or I find myself in this like comparison loop, it's to remind myself that life is about direction more than speed, right? Or what you want. The only thing you can do is take the actions to go towards a particular direction in your career or your love life or with your friendships or with your family. The only thing you can do is move in that direction, and the speed you can't really control because you don't live in isolation. Like things don't move in isolation.
Yeah.
You're part of like such a huge system of the universe.
Yeah.
And there's all these other people, all these other factors. There's macroeconomic conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't you can't expect like a certain like career jump in a recession, right? There's only so much you can do. Like you can work really hard, but there's only so much you can do.
For sure.
So the only thing you can do is move towards the direction that you want to be in, not you can't control the speed.
Yeah.
And I think talking to people helps about this. I
For
think
sure.
for me, I start spiraling when it's all in my mind.
Yes, for sure. I think like having like a group of friends, you know, who are maybe going through the same, or if they're not going through the same, asking them for advice, I think is even a good way, you know, to get your mind outside of that, because like maybe someone who's older has already gone through something like that, and it just helps you put in perspective,
Yeah.
you know, that what you're going through is not the end all be all.
And I think talking to people, they like listening to their react or like seeing their reaction makes you realize how dumb your worries are. Or
That's
not dumb, like I don't
true.
want to minimize
Yes.
people dumb, but they give you a perspective.
Yes.
Like the other day I was telling my friend that because I'm just dating right now, I feel like, and all my other friends are like partnered up. I'm like, I feel really behind, and I feel like, what if you guys all like get partner, like will like you don't want to hang out with like single people anymore, and you like not hang out with me, which I was truly feeling. But as I say it out loud now in this
It's
moment, I'm
so
like, it's so dumb. But my
correct.
friend is like, you know, we want to stop hanging out with you anyway. It doesn't
Correct.
matter whether you're single.
Correct.
And she made me laugh about it. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'm so glad that I spoke to her, and
Yeah.
you know, I wasn't like in my own little
Yeah, for sure.
headspace.
For sure. Another good way I think is like journaling. That's also another way to talk about it.
Yeah.
How's that been going, Rima?
I have been doing it and I hate it.
But it's good for you.
It's good for me. I'm like trusting the process.
Yes, for sure.
I'm like, if so many people, if like these award winning or like highly reputable psychiatrists and psychologists or just like regular people think that journaling is helpful, there must be something to it. So I'm trusting the process. So far, I have not seen any outcome. I just angrily write in my little book.
But that's also an outlet, you know?
Yeah.
And so in one way or another, it's a little win.
Yeah.
Right.
Trusting the process.
Yeah.
Someone told me that it's important to like put down your thoughts, and then when you reread them, you'll see how
You will I think
how unrealistic your thoughts are, or
Yeah.
like you'll like be like that's it's really not that bad. You'll have own perspective into your own thoughts.
for sure. I think it's also like one of those things where like when you're in the moment, you're just so blocked out from like I think reality.
Yeah.
Because you're in like your own little world, and it's just like all these voices inside your head.
Yeah.
And so like just jotting them down, your ideas of what you're going through, I think like is some sort of like release.
Yeah.
And then once you come back and read it, because you've had time to like, you know, open up your mind to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
When you come to reread it, it's like you said, you gain a new perspective, and you're just like, no, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. My godfather, I remember this from when I was traveling with him when I was like 16. I was telling him about all my worries, and he was just like, you should just write it down, put it in a little box, and then once you put it in the box, don't think about it. And then after 2 weeks, you come back, open the box, you would have forgotten about it, and you would have realized that it's not truly a worry. And he's like, why let those worries bother you so much when in actual fact it doesn't have that big of an impact? And it's I guess the same idea of journaling, right? Like you're just putting down all these ideas that you were once feeling, and then realizing that in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I think this is like skill. I think people are very much like, oh, I'm just like this is how I am and not do anything about it. But I don't want to be that. I want to like develop the emotional skills to like overcome things like this.
Yeah, or control your emotions.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, these are all like really good ways, I think, to practically reframe when you're in that sort of mindset of feeling left behind.
Yeah. On that note, I'm really glad we spoke about this, because I feel like I've been sort of in a weird comparison phase. And so this is a reminder that talking to other people helps.
For sure.
And I hope people listening to us today also got a little bit
Out
of
of this.
perspective. Yeah. That everybody's feeling it.
Yeah.
And we just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Just remember, like, our channel is all about like this community and us talking about it, and just reminding you that you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's going through similar things.
Very similar. Yeah. On that note, we hope this episode helped if you were feeling down and if you were comparing yourself to other people in different aspects. Like we said, life is about direction, not about speed. And hopefully you give yourself some credit for what you've achieved, because it's tough time all around.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
with the news cycle that's happening, the fact that you're still able to have wins is incredibly impressive.
Yeah. Stay positive.
Ugh.
Don't be like her.
Okay. On that note, we'll wrap it up. See you next week.
See ya.
Doodles.
Bye.